Filming on location today near Long Ridge outside of High Rolls, New Mexico at an elevation of 7,640 feet and an ambient air temperature today of 51 degrees. Hi folks, Dan with High Country back at you with another video. Today we're going to be discussing knives, an ancient tool that people have carried for thousands of years for all kinds of tasks and projects. And that's why we're going to cover it today. When you're backpacking and camping, or even in a survival situation, it's a tool that you're really seriously going to need. You won't need it every day, you certainly won't need it for every task, but when you need a knife, there is very little substitute. So we're going to discuss the types of knives, carrying systems for the knives, what exactly you're going to do with your knife, and what might be the best choice for you. So let's go from there. We have before us an array of knives. Now they're all knives, they all have blades, they will all cut things, and they will all spread peanut butter. But much like Orwell's pigs, some knives are more equal than others. What knife do we want to carry? Well, let's start by deciding what we're going to do with our knife. There's obviously no point in carrying a tiny, cheap knife if when the time comes, it isn't big enough for the job or it just breaks, because then there was no point in hauling it with you at all. Similarly, there is no point in carrying a 40-inch long broadsword because you don't need it for 99.9% of the things you're going to do. So somewhere in between tiny and useless and huge and expensive is our sweet spot. So let's get a little closer look, talk about some of these knives, what they can and cannot do, and then we'll work a little bit on what you might want to carry. All right, well, let's start by discussing these knives, what their design purpose is, and whether or not that design purpose and their construction makes them suitable for what it is you're trying to do on the trail. So we'll start with our smallest one first. This is a Victorinox Swiss Army knife. It is a quality little knife. They're made in Switzerland. It's good quality stainless. It has a second blade, which is actually a file, and then it has a toothpick and a pair of tweezers, which are handy. The problem with this is it is very, very small. It is about 2 inches long. The blade is 1.5 inches folded out. It is extremely thin steel, and it's a non-locking blade, which means it will fold up on your hand if you're not very careful. It also has very little lateral strength, which I think makes it basically useless as a camp tool. So we're going to take this one out of the equation. This next knife is a Western. It's a late 1960s or early 1970s. It is stainless steel. The blade is about 2 inches on this one. It does have a second blade, which is about 1.5 inches. It's a good quality little knife. This is the kind of thing that I might carry around town for opening boxes, for cutting tape, that sort of thing. But again, it's a non-locking blade, which is going to get you into trouble. Let's remember that if the blade folds up on your hand while you're using it and cuts you, it's going to put an end to your trip really quick. You could either lose your trip, you could get an infection, you could do permanent damage to yourself. These are not great working tools, although they're wonderful little pocket knives. So even though this is a good knife, and I've carried it a lot over my life, we're going to take it out of the equation as well. Next, we're going to move on to a Wenger Swiss Army knife. This is a much better knife. It is bigger, it is stronger, it has a locking blade. Now that's what we've discussed in other videos, and that is imperative for a tool. This one has, as I said, a number of other attachments, including tweezers and a toothpick, which is handy. This is a serviceable camp knife. I would have no issue with carrying this. It will do almost anything you might need to do on the trail. You can cut fabric with it, you can cut food with it, you can pop a blister with it. You can do almost anything you need to do. It's a good knife. So we're going to leave this in the equation for now. This is a Leatherman tool, and as its name suggests, it is a tool. It has a multitude of things inside. It has pliers, files, screwdrivers, all that sort of thing. And it's a good unit. I carry this one on a daily basis on my belt, and I like it. It is, however, not a locking blade, which we have mentioned before, and it is a relatively thin profile blade. It does not have a great deal of lateral strength, much like the smaller ones. So while I carry it as a tool, it is not my primary knife. So we're going to leave it in the equation for now, but it is not my first choice. Now, I do want to say, for those people that say you don't need a knife, well, you probably don't need a knife until you do. And then you need a knife desperately, and you'll certainly wish you had one. And that's the whole point of this. Next is an old Air Force survival knife. This is a parachute knife. It has got spring assist so that when you pop this, your blade comes out so that you can open your knife one-handed. This belonged to my grandfather, hence it's in the International Survival Orange, and he carried this in his flight suit when he was a pilot in the Army Air Corps and Air Force. This is a Camillus cutlery. They've been around a long time. It's a good quality knife. This one is stainless as well. It's a wonderful knife. It's sort of a special purpose. On this other end, it's got a tool for cutting shroud lines on your parachute if you happen to be hung in your parachute. And that's not something that you need every day. It's a good knife. They are very expensive, and all it is one single blade. So much as I like the knife, I think we're going to take it out of the equation for our discussion today. Next, we have a Cold Steel Spike. Now, I like Cold Steel. They're an excellent company. But this knife is designed for really one thing. It does have a cutting edge, but it is designed for stabbing. It is not a great tool. It's usable. Now, one thing I do like about this is it is not a folding knife. It is a fixed blade. It is a solid piece of steel all the way down, and it is very strong. So you can use it a little more for prying and that sort of thing, although that is not its design purpose. And I don't think it is a great knife for camping. So we're going to take it out of the equation as well. This is a Czechoslovakian hunting knife. It's got a 3.5 inch blade. It's a good little knife. I have used this for a number of years for a number of things. It's a quality knife. It is, again, a fixed blade. It will not fold up. It is stainless steel, so it is low maintenance. It's a quality unit. This is a perfectly serviceable knife to carry with you on a trip. So we're going to leave it in the equation. Now here we have one of the knives I was talking about that's cheap. I picked this up in a bag of knives at a garage sale. It is Chinese stainless. I do not trust the quality of the stainless. I do not trust the quality of the knife. Although it is a locking blade, it is not a strong locking blade. As you can see, the blade wiggles back and forth, and I believe it is pretty inferior quality steel. So this is not something I would want to trust my life on. If it's all you've got, it's certainly better than no knife, but that doesn't make it a good knife. So we're going to take it out. This I have had a long time. I don't know where it was made. It is a stainless steel switchblade, and it is useless as a tool. Again, it is great for stabbing, but that's about all. It's old, the spring is weak, the blade has no lateral strength at all. It is just a piece of junk. And so while it will stab things and while you can cut cheese with it, that's about all. So we're gonna get it out of here as well. This is my daily use knife. When I go out into the woods, this is the knife I normally carry. This is a Ka-Bar. They have been around forever. They made knives prior to World War II. This one is stainless steel. I like stainless because it's low maintenance. You don't have to worry about it rusting in the field. No, it will not hold as good an edge as a carbon blade for the most part, but it's an excellent general purpose knife. This is a 4-inch blade. It is strong. It is very thick. It is a fixed blade, and it will do what you need to do. Now we're stepping into a big knife, so let's talk about something else. There's a man named Bill Bagwell, who's a member of the American Bladesmith Society. He's a master bladesmith. He's written articles for magazines for many years. Bill is good at what he does, and he has a great statement. He said that a big knife will do anything that a small knife will do, but the reverse is not true. Now you may think, well, how do I cut stitches or how do I pop a blister with this? Well, you simply flip it over so the spine rests in your hand, choke up on it, and now you have a very fine, very small point with which to do small tasks. These are excellent knives, and this is my first choice for a camp knife. So we're going to leave it here for now. This is a Schrade Old Timer. It's about a 4-inch blade, just like the Ka-Bar. Schrade and Old Timers have been around forever. Schrade's quality has suffered a little in recent years, but these older knives are excellent. This is not a fixed blade, it is a locking blade. As you see, we have to move a piece out of the way to get it to lock. It's a good knife. If this is what you've got no problems. This will certainly get you through what you're doing. This is a carbon steel blade, not a stainless, so it takes a little more maintenance, but it will take a very fine edge and it will give you good service. Now this is a 2-blade knife, so if you happen to break one, you have another, but this is really a fish filleting blade and it is not great as a tool. So we'll leave this in the pile because it is a good quality knife and will do the job for you. This is a knife I received as a gift a number of years ago. It's a Norwegian knife. I was a dealer for John Sword chainsaws, and this was a prize for selling a certain number of chainsaws. This is a good knife. It's a 5-inch blade, again, stainless steel. I like the knife. It's a good work knife. My complaint with it is you'll notice on this Ka-Bar, there's a little ridge at the bottom which will keep your hand from sliding up onto the blade. This one has finger grooves, but they're not as positive, and if you're working hard, you can slide out onto the blade and really do a number on yourself. So it's a solid knife, not a great knife. It will do the job, so we'll leave it here for now. This is a dive knife. It's a U.S. Diver's dive knife. It is stainless steel. Yes, it is a knife, but it is a dive knife. It is heavy, it is bulky, it is more than you need. And I've seen people say, well, it's got a saw blade on it. Yes, it does. And if you've ever tried to saw anything with a 2 or 3-inch sawing surface, it is a miserable experience at best. So while it is a knife and will do the job, I do not recommend something like this. If it's all you've got, it's all you've got, but we're gonna take it out because I don't recommend it. This is an Imperial. It was my grandfather's knife. He used this for filleting fish, cleaning fish over many, many years in the 60s and 70s. It's got a wooden handle and it is a fixed blade. However, as you'll note, it has very little ridge here to keep your hand from sliding up on the blade. It's got some, but not much. And it is very, very thin. It's designed to get in and clean a fish. It is not a hard-working tool. And for those two reasons, we're gonna take it out of the equation. It's a good knife, but it's not what you need as a camp knife. Now, the classic Rambo knife. Folks, movies be damned. You're not going to be leaping out of trees and spearing pigs or defending yourself against bandits by stabbing someone. This is a cheap knife. It's a low quality knife. I bought it when I was very young because I thought it was cool, and that's all it is, cool. It's not a good knife. If this is what you've got, it's usable. It does have a bottle opener on the top. It does have a saw, such as it is, but it is not a good knife. It does not hold a good blade. It is heavy. It is bigger than you need it to be. And keep in mind, your knife is not, for the most part, going to be a weapon. Yes, in certain circumstances it might be, but that is not the point of carrying a knife for camp purposes. This is junk. Don't trust your life to something like this. And lastly, we have a bayonet. Now this happens to be a bayonet for a Garand rifle, a World War II issue semi-automatic military rifle. Yes, it has a blade. Yes, it will cut things. It is massive. It is heavy. It is unwieldy. It is far more than you need. It is a poor knife and a marginal bayonet. It is here mostly for illustration purposes. Now, what it does have is very positive finger lock. Your hand is not going to slide down onto the blade. And that's nice, but I don't think that outweighs all of the downsides of this. The single benefit does not outweigh the downsides to it. So we'll take that out of the equation as well. So that's really going to leave us with these 6. So where do we go from here? Frankly, this good a knife as this little Czechoslovakian knife is, I don't think it's a great choice. It's a slightly smaller than this one, but not significantly lighter than the Ka-Bar. And if you're going to carry a knife that's almost as heavy, you might as well carry a knife with a little bit bigger blade. It's got a little more belly to it, so it's stronger, and it's a little bit longer. I just think it's a better choice. So we'll pull this Czech knife out of here. Now that's going to take us down to the Leatherman. I do apologize if you hear noise in the background. It is hunting season out and there are ATVs and trucks driving by all the time. So we get down to these 5. What are we talking about here? Well, as I said, the Swiss Army knife is a great little camp knife as long as you get a Victorinox or Wenger. I have carried them for many years. I think they're excellent knives. So that's certainly a possibility for you. They'll range anywhere from about $24 to about $40, and they're good knives. If you take one of these to the field, it will do almost anything you need a knife to do. Leatherman tool. As I mentioned, it is not a superb knife, but it is a superb tool. I generally carry this Leatherman as well as a knife, and I don't really use the Leatherman blade. I use the Leatherman as a tool, not as a knife, even though it does have a knife blade. So if it's all you've got, they're going to be fine. You'll be perfectly okay with this in 99% of your circumstances. But for the purposes of our discussion today, we're going to go ahead and take this out. The Ka-Bar fixed blade. I don't necessarily think you have to have a Ka-Bar, but Ka-Bar is a good brand. As long as you buy a quality brand, you're going to be fine. This is an excellent knife for camp purposes. Now, here's one of the things that we haven't discussed that you can do with a knife, and that is batoning through wood. Let me grab a piece of wood here. If you need to split a piece of wood, you can take your knife, lay it on top, and tap on the spine of the knife with another piece of wood, and it will split this piece of wood, which can be great for starting fires, for making splints, for a lot of things like that. And that is one of the advantages of a larger, heavier blade, is you can use it for larger, heavier tasks. I think this is an excellent choice for a knife, and I'm gonna lean toward that one. Schrade Old Timer. The blade is as long as the Ka-Bar. It is not as heavy as the Ka-Bar, either in the belly or across the spine. So while it is a quality knife, and while you could indeed baton wood with it if you needed to, I don't think it's as good a choice as this. It's every bit as heavy, but it is not as strong. So while it's a quality knife and you won't go wrong carrying this on a trip, it would not be my primary choice. And then we're down to the Norwegian knife. Again, an excellent knife, a fixed blade, very strong, thick enough that you can baton things through. But my concern with it is this fairly slick handle and not having enough retention here to keep my hand from sliding up onto the blade in hard work. So good a knife as I think it is, this would not be my primary choice for a camp knife because it does not offer me enough security and the handle's a little bit slick. So that's going to take us down to these two. We've got a 4-inch fixed blade and a Victorinox or Wenger Swiss Army knife. Either one of these will do the job for you camping. I am going to lean toward the larger knife because, as I said, larger knives can do large jobs and small knives cannot. This is what I carry every backpacking trip I take, along with this Leatherman. And you notice I said Leatherman, not Gerber. Leatherman's made in America, Gerber's made in China. I buy American. So I carry this Leatherman and this knife on every backpacking or camping trip I take. But if you were going to carry this knife instead, you'd be all right with it. It will get you through. If you're going to carry this knife, you certainly don't necessarily need the Leatherman tool because the only thing this offers that this does not is a pair of pliers, which can be handy, but you can normally get around it. So this is where I would go, folks. If you're looking at a knife, this is what I would be carrying. I would either be carrying a good quality Swiss Army knife, which is light, handy, and will fit in your pocket, or I would be carrying a large 4-inch at minimum fixed blade. That's my opinion. That's where we're at right now. So now let's move on to how you're going to carry these knives. All right, lastly, we're going to discuss how you carry your knife. Now let's start by saying that if you're going to carry a pocket knife like the folding Swiss Army knife, this is going to be irrelevant because the pocket knife is designed to fold up and go in your pocket. So this is added weight and bulk that you don't need if you're going to carry a folding pocket knife. So keep that in mind. If you're going to carry a fixed blade, this is going to be important. Now the holder, the carrier for your knife is known as a scabbard or a sheath. The point of it is twofold. One is to keep it on you, to attach it to your body, your person, your gear in some way. And the other is to keep that fixed blade from cutting you or your gear as you walk. That's the point of all of this. So let's start here. This large, heavy wooden item is the scabbard from the Garand bayonet. It weighs almost as much as some of the other knives. It is enormous. It is rigid. You don't want to carry this. Yes, it has a belt hook, but as I mentioned in my canteen video, it's going to do this all day. It's going to slap up against your hip. It's noisy, it's irritable, it's way more than you need, and this is bigger than some of the other knives and just as heavy. So this is absolutely irrelevant, it's just here for illustration purposes. This is the scabbard from the Imperial fish knife. Now, one nice feature this does have, it is high visibility. Now this is a tip for you, a pro tip from a guy who's lost a lot of things in the woods. Interesting pro tip. Camo is cool, dark colors are cool. Bright colors are easy to find. When you set it down, you can see it. You won't walk off and leave it there because it's high vis. So I do like the fact that it's yellow, but that's about all there is to say for it. It's a flimsy little scabbard. It's not a good piece of equipment, and this is not what I would recommend, but it's better than nothing. This little rubber strap on the end, if you catch this on something, it will tear and you will lose your knife and your scabbard. When you need them, you won't have them. This is made out of a 1970s plastic. It's very soft, so it's not rigid like the bayonet scabbard, and that's nice, but that's about all there is to commend it. This is the leather sheath from the Ka-Bar. Now, I have been carrying this one for many years. As you can see, the stitching is worn out. I need to make myself another one. I like leather if you're carrying stainless steel. If you're carrying high carbon steel, leather will tend to get wet and it can cause your blade to rust. However, this is a good scabbard. It's got a wide loop so you can get it around any size belt or straps on your pack or wherever you might want to carry it. It has positive retention with the snap so that the knife will not get away from you. It is stitched and riveted. It is a good quality scabbard, and this is the kind of thing I'm going to recommend if you're going to carry a belt knife as opposed to a pocket knife. Now this is a Kydex sheath. This is off of that Cold Steel stabbing blade, the Cold Steel Spike. Kydex is a modern polymer. People make knife holsters out of them, gun holsters, camera cases, all kinds of things. And I don't necessarily have an issue with Kydex. If you've got a Kydex holster, that's fine. This one has got a loop here that you can run through your belt, or the knife itself has a chain on it so that you can wear it around your neck. But Kydex is the modern option for scabbards. This is Cordura nylon, and it is actually meant for the Leatherman tool, which I carry in a pocket on my survival vest. Cordura works fine for folding things. It works fine for pouches. I don't recommend it for a fixed blade knife because it is a cloth, and over time your knife will simply cut right through it. So that is the option for Leathermans and that sort of thing, but it's not a great option for carrying a knife. So that leaves us with either some sort of a modern polymer, Kydex or something of that nature, or a leather. That is my personal opinion. Now, I don't like the black. As I mentioned earlier, it's not high visibility. It's easy to set it down. And even if you don't lose it, it can take you 3 or 4 minutes to find it once you set it down just because of the dark color. Now, the brown can give you some of that as well, but it's a little more visible than the black. So my recommendation is that you're going to go with a scabbard of some kind that's strong, durable, and relatively high visibility. So I don't like the black. This is where I would go. Not all knives are going to come with something like this, but you can buy these relatively inexpensively all over the internet, or more importantly, at knife and gun shops in your local area. Try and do business in your local area if you can. People on the internet can't help you with advice. The guy at the knife or gun store where you buy this certainly can. So there we go. That's our options for scabbards. All right, folks, that's our discussion on knives for today. Now, I do want to address one topic. People will say, well, why do you carry a knife? Well, as I mentioned before, you may want to cut cheese. You may want to spread peanut butter. You may be trying to divide a portion if you're cutting meat or something of that nature. You may need to make things. You may bend a tent spike and may need to carve one out of a piece of wood that you find on the trail. You may need to pop a blister. You may need to cut some piece of gear and reattach it if your web strap is broken, for example, and you need to cut the frayed end or something and reattach it. They're a tool, just like a hammer or a saw or a drill. They're a tool. And when you're on the trail where you don't have hammers and saws and drills, your knife is going to be the only tool you have. So I do highly recommend carrying one. I hope this has been beneficial to you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, I hope you'll come back and see us again. I'm Dan with High Country. We'll catch you next time.